have a quorum. I'll call the meeting to order. The 12th of November. This is a special meeting to strategic planning. And why don't we start the meeting? I'll call the order and we'll do a roll call. 10 vote if you could, or I could do it.
President Schmaltz,
Present.
Manager Lowe,
Here.
Manager Henderson, Manager Taves,
Here.
Manager Baki.
Here. Okay, thank you. We have a quorum, so let's why don't we start off then? And you're gonna, Mike's here, he's got a presentation somewhere, right? So do you start us to get Yanni involved? Do this.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know if you can hear me, President Schmaltz, just letting you know that Manager Anderson and I are both en route back from speaking at this conference. So
Okay.
I'm just on the phone and she'll be joining remotely later when she gets back home.
Well, thanks for that, Mike. Good. So why don't we go right to Yanni then, and why don't you take
Okay, great. I am getting a little choppiness from kind of the group Zoom. Is everybody hearing that, or is that just me on my end?
I'm experiencing the same thing.
Okay.
We're having our internet office today.
Okay. All right, let's see. If there's anything that can be done, we give it a shot. If not, we'll kind of give us a whirl and see if it has an impact. Hopefully that won't be the case. Okay, so I'll kind of kick us off. Kind of start this in a very similar manner than we've started the other ones, or the last couple times that we've all kind of gathered here. We're here to really just kind of get alignment on our mission, our vision, our values. I want to start off today's agenda with really slowing down and just kind of defining all three of those things and how they kind of interact with one another. I think we should all kind of understand that, but I feel like it's a good idea just to kind of present that on the forefront to make sure that it is kind of fresh in our minds as we continue through this exercise. We sent out a Google form just to kind of get some more objective feedback on some of the progress that we've made, as well as making that progression into kind of the value definition aspect of the exercise. So I'll kind of speak through some of those takeaways in regards to the vision and the mission. And we'll probably spend a good bit of today on the mission and then kind of leaning into the values and defining our values. I have kind of consolidated all of our responses. I'm open to obviously more at this point, but I've really just taken this consolidation and extracted a couple themes, some consistencies amongst all of you or whoever provided their feedback through that form. And we'll start to kind of slow down and define those things and see exactly what it is we can kind of stand behind. Emily was kind enough to start to kind of put together a more branded document that has some cohesion to it, that looks beautiful. It actually mimics another document that we've presented in the last couple meetings. But I think it'll be nice just to kind of get some context towards the end of what this is all going to look like in regards to a deliverable that we can either attach to our website, incorporate on our homepage, provide to any documents that we're producing that are more so built for just handouts to our community, education, things like that. But that's really the extent of it. I just want to open the room for any feedback, any questions, anything in particular that anyone would want to ensure that we kind of cover today outside of the agenda that's been presented. Okay. Great. Okay, so we sent out this form. The first question was really pertaining to our vision. I think we've narrowed this down to two very specific kind of vision statements. We've also kind of come to the conclusion that as we continue building these three things out, vision, mission, and values, that there might be opportunity to kind of come back, right? So we don't really need to kind of draw that line in the sand just yet. but we are certainly making progress and have something that I think we have some pretty decent alignment on. The two kind of visions, or the two vision statements that were presented, one was, we see a future where our communities collaborate with us in improving and sustaining our ecosystems and clean water resources for future generations to enjoy. That was option number one. Option number two was, we see a future where our communities are connected, informed, and engaged with us in improving and sustaining our ecosystems and clean water resources for future generations to enjoy. I would like to just state that we had a very even split. There's no real takeaways from that saying that we're going to go one way or the other right now in this moment, but I would like everyone to just be aware that it was a clean split right down the middle, 50-50 in regards to the favoritism based on one side or the other. Okay. Does anybody have, and we're going to kind of glaze over the vision side today, because I think we have that pretty well dialed in with the, maybe some nuance to it that might need some changing. But before we kind of move on here, does anybody have any feedback or anything that needs to be said in regards to those two vision statements, or something that they feel like is lacking, or anything that needs to be said regarding the vision side of this?
Yanni, visual learning, we have those posted on the, so we can see them.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, these are the two vision statements right here. Can everybody see that okay? And I'll try to put this up a little bit. These were the two vision statements. But again, opening it up, any input, feedback, anything that needs to be kind of raised in regards to these two statements, and having them kind of be at the top of the list for us on the vision side. Great. Okay. So now we're going to move into mission. I have some feedback from everybody regarding the two mission statements that were presented. I want to just kind of read a little bit of a longer statement in regards to the definition of mission, vision, values, and how they support one another. I mentioned this kind of at the forefront here, but I want to ensure that everybody has this kind of top of mind as we start this conversation and start to kind of bring some alignment to these phrases and these values. So our vision, okay, the definition of the vision is the organization aspirational long-term goal or desired future state. It represents where the organization is heading. Mission. The mission is the organization's purpose, what it does on the day-to-day basis to serve its stakeholders. It provides clarity on what the organization does and how it seeks to achieve its goals. Values are defined as the guiding principles or core beliefs that define how the organization operates, shapes its culture, and influences its behavior. Values determine the ethical standards and priorities that drive the organization's actions. How do they support one another? They bring alignment and consistency. The vision provides a long-term goal, while the mission defines the organization's current actions to get there. Values support both the shaping of how the organization operates and how it interacts with its stakeholders, ensuring that the journey toward the vision is consistent with the mission. It also offers guidance for decision-making. Together, vision, mission, and values create this North Star for the decision-making process. The vision inspires, the mission directs, and the values provide the ethical framework to ensure that all actions align with the organization's purpose and goals. And lastly, they build culture and trust. Values reinforce the culture, building trust internally and externally of the organization. When all three elements are in harmony, they foster a strong, unified organizational identity that resonates with employees, stakeholders, and the organization's community. Any questions, feedback, comments on anything that I just kind of went through in regards to those three things? I think we're probably on the same page at this point, but again, just want to make sure we're slowing down and keeping this top of mind. Wonderful. Okay, we presented two mission statements. I'm going to read them, and then I'll kind of go through some of the feedback that was presented through the form that everybody filled out. First statement, our mission is to protect and enhance our ecosystems and natural water resources by being leaders in watershed work, leveraging innovation, adaptive management, and education/outreach, empowering our community to be informed and active stewards. That was number one. Number two, our mission is to protect and enhance our ecosystems and natural water resources by being leaders in watershed work, leveraging innovation, adaptive management, cost-efficient economic principles, and education/outreach, empowering our community to be informed and active stewards. I have another version down here that was kind of brought forth, and we'll talk about that in a moment. When we think about kind of these, some themes or some feedback that was provided, I think the biggest thing that came forth on a couple people was that there wasn't enough what, right? Of like, what exactly are we going to be doing, and bringing some more specifics to it. There were some kind of, not issues, but some comments in regards to just grammatically how that statement is kind of put together. It lacking verbs to kind of have that cohesion and that common thread with all of these kind of initiatives or these values that we have internally embedded in our mission statement. So those are probably the biggest two takeaways based on that lack of verb kind of feedback. This was another kind of example that was presented. Our mission is to protect and enhance our ecosystems and natural water resources by being leaders in watershed work, leveraging innovation, practicing adaptive management, adhering to sound economic principles, engaging in community education, and empowering our community to be informed and active stewards. I'm going to leave that out there for a minute. The last theme was just not a ton of buy-in with the phrase cost-efficient economic principles, that it was just a little bit clunky, and there may have been a more intentional way to kind of say the same thing. I know that that kind of came forth pretty quickly last time we were together, but I do want to kind of put that out there. So I'm going to open the floor, and feel free to raise your hand if you're on Zoom. If you're in person, just kind of chime in. Again, we're opening the floor here to just some feedback, some comments, some thoughts. I don't think we're there, honestly, based on the feedback that kind of came forth through the Google form. It sounds like the majority want or are looking for something a little bit more in this statement.
The one
Steve.
that the verb or at, sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I like the last one.
If we're going to rely on how in our mission statement, then I would prefer, I agree with Chris, I think the verb addition is a good addition. It shows involvement and commitment to getting things done. But my original premise is that there's no what there except for the statement, which is very general. And I think that we're trying to get people to understand what it is. And I've written you a couple on this already, you know, honey, so, it just seems like we've lost the what. Unless it's a very general statement, and in that case, when we started this whole process, we felt that we were more specific what we were gonna do. In
Sure.
terms of our statement, so people understood where we're going and what we're trying to work towards. And
Okay.
plan. If they read the 10-year plan, that's not here, it's just complicated.
Yeah.
Or we can substitute a short paragraph that would explain what we're trying to do.
And I think that I hear what you're saying, and I do agree, right? There isn't much, I guess, granularity in the statement in regards to the what. And when we think about mission, right, it's what we're going to do to be able to achieve said vision. I will say this, that a macro high level perspective, I think, is important. This is a statement that needs to stand the test of time and can't be 100% aligned with a 10-year plan. The 10-year plan, while in my opinion is a little bit of a lengthy kind of approach to planning, right? And imparting action. A lot of people's mental capacity really thrives in that 1 to 3 year realm. But with that being said, regardless of if it's a 10-year, 5-year, 3-year paragraph, there is another opportunity or a set of initiatives, a set of milestones, a set of roadmap items, right, that very cleanly and concisely go into a bit more detail of some of the things that are important to us. So while I do agree with your saying, and I think what you're stating is very true, I don't, and I'd be very interested to hear everybody else's kind of take on this. I'm not sure if we should hope to gain that level of detail in the mission, if that makes sense. I think that there will be other opportunities to give us the ability to adapt and pivot and plan and strategize and present those initiatives forth, right, through a more actionable kind of plan. You know, I don't see this as being something very actionable when it comes to the day-to-day. Yes, it's what we're doing daily, but it's not necessarily a fully encompassing statement that needs to go into depth about exactly how we're going to achieve our vision, right? That granularity, I think, is going to get lost, and then we'll find ourselves every 10 years having to kind of revisit our mission. It's not the end of the world, honestly, if that's how we want to kind of approach this as a group, that every time we do our 10-year plan, we think about our mission for that 10-year period and align the two. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. And again, I'm definitely open. You know, I'm not here to say right or wrong. I'm here to just extract and present and hopefully get some alignment. But I'm very curious to hear everybody else's kind of input on this.
Well, I kind of like it in that it the wording creates a springboard for discussion to get to that level of granularity that Steve is looking for. I think it opens up the door for people to ask questions and also gives us the entree to be pursuing relationships that will help us get to that granularity that we're looking to do. It's kind of like a preamble to the 10-year plan.
Does everybody agree that imparting some verbs into this, while it does kind of draw it out a little bit in regards to its length, that there is a ton of impact from them?
The first
I
reading
like
of that, sorry,
Doug.
the first time you read that through it, that the verbs really jumped out at me. I like that a lot. Haven't had a lot of time to digest it, but I do like it.
Sure.
I do like the addition of the verbs. they're all active verbs except first one. By being leaders in watershed work, what if we change that to leading in watershed work? Rather than by being, change leaders in watershed work. And take out the by. So it's resources, natural water resources leading watershed work. Does that make sense?
Take out the by. Okay,
Yeah,
With-
Yep.
With a comma
no comma,
after resources?
no comma.
no comma.
Our mission is to protect and enhance ecosystems of water resources leading in watershed work. Does that make sense?
Natural water resources leading watershed work. I feel like a comma, I want to put a comma there, but you're grammatically, I think you have a bit more experience than I do.
Something on me right now.
Mission is to protect and enhance our ecosystems and natural water resources. Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, because it does just go into it. Otherwise, you would need you would need by or something like that in there. Okay. Also, these down here, this might be something kind of silly. While empowering our community to be informed and active stewards. Does that feel better than and?
Now, I have one more question back to the point I'm trying here is that you probably won't have to, if you include the 4 or 5 that we've looked at, we had like 4 people on this 10-year plan. Yeah, more than that probably. Emily can, but it took us 1.5. How long did it take us, Emily? A year, 2 years to get through all the meetings?
3.
So we have a lot of input from a lot of smart people. The area that we've got in our 10-year plan, those 4 or 5 active areas aren't going to change over the 10 years. What changes probably focus within those areas. Much like we're shifting from lakes now to
Sure.
floodplain, and from floodplain to green space and wetlands, et cetera. And the emphasis would be done in the execution. My only concern is that when you read this statement, I would suspect most people would say, what does that mean? So now I think we have a very short window to get at people's attention in a vision and a mission statement. So it should be very clear on what it involves and what we're going to be working on. And I think in terms of, floodplain, green space, wetlands, et cetera, are more understandable like than the general terms that we have in the current mission statement. So I just want to point out, I think probably the safest thing to do would be to have one of each side and then test it with some end consumers and see how they react to it. But, for the group to decide, there's an argument on both sides. I like the statement as done. Again, I think we're spending too much time on talking about value systems in the mission statement that maybe belong somewhere else. Maybe not. That's something we have to find. But I probably should maybe look at considering testing both concepts with people.
Yeah.
To react.
So I dropped these priorities that you had sent me via email, right? Flood management, lakes and other water resources, green space creation, wetlands, upland resources, and groundwater. I don't know, does everybody feel like we can encompass these things in a couple phrases, or should we state them? Should we come out and state them? And then, you know, I mean, maybe this is kind of an open-ended question here. Maybe the outcome is just moving on to values to be able to impart those values and then use those to help kind of recraft the statement a little bit and see how far.
I think that's a good suggestion. We're kind of at an advance right now, and I think values will help us sort through out, because I really think that a lot of values are in that statement.
Yeah,
So
I
if we don't include those in our value statement, what's gonna be in there? And then how does that work? So I think it's gonna sort itself out. And I think
Sure.
ultimate test is what our, a simple audience is about what we've done.
Okay.
So I think that's a good suggestion, Yanni, because we could spend
Okay.
all night discussing the two things, we're not gonna get any further. I
Yeah,
think we've got two platforms, we'll have to just move forward and see how it works out.
I agree. I feel like it will present itself quite clearly once we kind of understand. And again, if you think about the definition of what the values are, right? We're trying to make a decision here. Hopefully they'll help guide us make that decision right in alignment.
Right.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair. Let me pull this up.
Yeah. Okay. Doug, are you open to moving ahead then?
Moving ahead, and I'm gonna pull up just kind of some consolidated feedback from the form that everybody did here. I'm gonna read through this, and then we'll just kind of open the room and see where people are. But we have something, there's some pretty concrete stuff here, and there was quite a few kind of consistencies. So at the top, this is literally just copy, paste, consolidate, right? Remove any consistencies based on all of the values that were presented forth. So now we had 6 or 7 people present 5 or more values, and we have 12 that, like we came up with 12, right? So there might be some small things that that are easily grouped into here, right? But for the most part, that's a really, really, really nice thing to see, right? Because it's not like I asked 7 people to give us 5 and we got 40, 50, different values, and everybody's kind of thinking something else on a different wavelength. So it's really nice to see that. On the bottom, I have some consistencies here, and we'll kind of go through those themes and whatnot. But I'm going to go through these. I think everybody can see this, right? It should say consolidated values up at the top of the document. Great. Okay, so number 1, water resource leadership. Serve as a leader in water resource management, setting high standards and driving impactful initiatives in the field. Number 2, innovation and adaptive management. Embrace creative, adaptive strategies that respond to evolving environmental challenges, utilizing the latest research and tools. Fiscal responsibility. Ensure efficient allocation of taxpayer funds through cost-benefit analysis, the Pareto principle, and leveraging grants and low-cost loans to maximize impact. Collaboration. Work closely with constituents, partners, employees, and critics to achieve shared goals, valuing diverse perspectives. Sustainability and resilience. Commit to sustainable practices that protect natural resources and implement resilient systems that anticipate environmental changes. Number 6, scientific and metric-driven approach. Use science-based methods, diagnostic monitoring, and clearly defined metrics to guide all actions and evaluate progress towards goals. Community engagement and education. Equip the community with knowledge and tools, fostering informed, active stewardship of water and natural resources. Transparency and accountability. Act with integrity and openness, ensuring that the organization remains clear in its actions and accountable to its constituents. Service-oriented mindset. Approach all interactions with respect and friendliness, prioritizing service and responsiveness to the community needs. Number 10 is responsible governance. Follow sound governance principles focused on meaningful results, ensuring efficiency, and a focus on impactful outcomes over mere activity. Equity and inclusivity. Serve the community equitably, embracing diversity, inclusion, and accessibility for all. And a visionary spirit was the last one. Encourage forward thinking, innovative ideas that challenge boundaries for advancement of community and environmental health. Some common themes, and then we'll come back to those, but some common themes: fiscal responsibility and sustainability are essential. I think we all believe that. Emphasizing efficient resource use and commitment to lasting environmental impact. I think everyone that presented some responses had some shape or some aspect of that in their response. Scientific metric-driven methods. Show a focus on data-backed decisions, adaptive management, and progress evaluation. Right? The ability to always make good data-based decisions, I think, is very important, and that was a common theme. Community focus and collaboration. Reflect a commitment to serve constituents and working inclusively with all stakeholders. Transparency, accountability, and service orientation. Highlight the need for openness, respect, and responsiveness in operation. Responsible governance and leadership. Emphasize results-oriented principles with a focus on meaningful achievements that align with community benefit. Okay, so those are kind of the 5 high-level consistent themes. These are the 12 values. Let's see if I can get these all on the page here for you all. Okay. Let's, if you, or do you guys feel pretty good about kind of going around the room and just highlighting some ones that are like non-negotiables? This needs to be a part of it, right? And starting to kind of sort those commonalities out. And then we can start to kind of talk about maybe the less popular ones and make the decision whether we need to come forth. I also kind of think before we go through this exercise, we should all align on a number. Is it 5? Is it 8? Is it 10? Is it 7? Because we like odd numbers. I think that's going to, kind of force us to align and consolidate some of these and not make this a full 1-page value list that's difficult for people to comprehend and fully act on a daily basis. Okay, we want our staff and everybody that's a part of this organization to be able to off the cuff read these or say these without having to reference a piece of paper. That's how much we stand behind them and how much we enjoy or we value them. So yeah, I mean, let's go around the room. Where we'll start with Steve and then we'll kind of make our way around. I want everybody to kind of throw out a number. I'll keep track of it based on what we feel like should kind of be that confining sandbox of the amount of values that we should be bringing forth.
So you want me to pick one or?
I don't want you to pick any. I just want to gauge your input on how many values you think this organization should have. Should it be 3, 5, 7, 10, more than 10? Again, we know what the purpose of them are, right? And I want to just reiterate that when everyone is thinking of that number, keep in mind that we would like everybody in this room and beyond to be able to restate these values off the top of their head. Not necessarily the definitions of them, but just the phrases, right? And if we get into a list of 18 to 20 values, that's going to be pretty near impossible.
Well, I think, just top of my head, I would say we need around 5. I think is a good number. But we could go through the list and then pick up something we think is the most important and see how many it comes up with. But that's what my initial goal would be 5. Looking at other examples of these values and other companies and so forth. Yep. Around 5, I would think.
Okay, great. Who's next? Give me a number.
Can you scroll down? You kind of had consolidated down there. Yeah, that came out to 5 too. That's kind of the number I was thinking.
Okay,
And nothing magical about the number, but if we can, kind of coalesce around something that your mind doesn't wander away on.
exactly. Okay, so we've got 2 5s. Does anybody think we should have more than 5?
Like around 7-ish, more than 5, not many more than 5.
Okay, I like it. Good. Anyone else?
I'm good with 5 or 7. I like
Okay.
12, really. The only problem is calling all of them, but I think all 12 are very good.
Sure, sure. Okay. All right. So it sounds like 5 to 7, right? And I think we all can agree there. If we shoot for 5 and we land on 7, I think that's a win. You know, if we end up being 8 or 9, again, that's not that bad. Cultivate Advisors has 8 values, just so everybody is aware. So we have over that 5 number. There's plenty of organizations that have 3 and stand behind them and say them often. But I think 5 is a really great kind of goal here to kind of funnel this down. Okay. So we're going to go through this one by one.
Hey, can I ask a question before we step on that? On values, when you look at a company, you have, usually a successful company has some real core, what we call core competencies.
Yeah. Yep.
Because they're not 7 or 8, right? There's 3 or 4 probably that are really core competencies. And when you get away from that, you become an also-ran, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's a thought process we should probably maybe try to bring in here in terms of as us and what we've been successful in the past, and we have been successful. Trying to identify what those core competency values have made us successful, so we make sure we include those to begin with.
I agree with that. And honestly,
For example, the one on equity and inclusivity is great for Washington County, where 35% of the population is minority and needs help, et cetera. But here we're dealing with different types of situations where we're not getting help with those issues, social issues I'm talking about now, where that's
sure.
a really key success factor to having a successful local government unit that's going to serve everybody's needs. So that's just an example.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I agree. I mean, these are core competencies, values, right? There's definitely some synergies between those two. They can be one and the same, honestly. And, having the more we have, again, everyone's probably going to look at this list and be able to resonate with every one of these. Okay, it's easy to add, it's difficult to subtract. And our goal here is to remove the ones that, yes, we believe in, right? There's no reason why we shouldn't be collaborating, and that's just an example. But is that truly something that is always going to drive every decision at the company or at the organization? And can we have that kind of can that be a common thread through every single thing that we do? And if it can't, right, and there's some roadblocks there, then maybe it's something that just kind of falls off the list, or is consolidated into something else. Again, some of these are, 2-word statements. They can be phrases if we want to. It doesn't have to be just 1 word or 2 words, right? We can start to kind of expand on some of these. So they do kind of bring that overarching kind of more umbrella, perspective to a few of them or engulf a few of them. But those are just thoughts. And I think 3 to 7, right, is going to be great. I think it's going to be really hard to whittle down 12 that everybody stands behind into 3. Who knows? Maybe we'll surprise everyone, each other. But I think we're all on the same kind of playing field here, is that kind of 5 to 7 number, right? Under 10, more than kind of 3, just based on, some of these consistencies. Okay. Any other comments, just high level macro comments that anybody wants to throw out there before we kind of go through these one by one? Okay. Okay, let's start with number 1. Let's see if this. show you this actually before we do this, because this is just going to show you a format that I think we're trying to adhere to. Can everybody see this okay? It says our vision, mission, values at the top here. Okay, great. So I think this is a format that everybody saw at some point, right, and really loved. Emily took the time to kind of start to bring some of our conversations and some of the things that we've defined into this. Again, I don't want you to like bring much, don't take much value from the words that are on the paper yet, right? Because we're not done, but the format and how they should be presented. Okay, so I just want to kind of put this out there so everybody can see it and envision it as we start to make our way through these. Great. Okay, so number one, water resource leadership. Serve as a leader in water resource management, setting high standards and driving impactful initiatives in the field. And we're going to go around the room and we just want some feedback. Do we really resonate with this? Is this something that can really become a common thread or a North Star in every decision-making process that we kind of facilitate past, present, and future? So Steve, I guess I'll call on you if you want to just kind of kick us off here. What are your thoughts and feelings about that first value?
It's something that we've demonstrated for sure. We've used a lot of new tools and approaches which have made us very successful. Diagnostic monitoring, allocation of resources, et cetera, et cetera. So I think some version of that probably would certainly be a candidate for one of the 7.
Okay.
And by the way, I think it's important that we wrote the first answer of president. It's not good for the president answers for the first question. I don't think, just because I'm the president. So I think we need to have a circulatory. I always had to do that in our book and everything else, Yanni, just so.
That's fair. I understand. I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
People are gonna listen, right?
Yep. You're setting the tone, right? It's and then we start to creep some bias into this. I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. All right, who's next? And I'll make sure I don't pick on you first for the next one.
I feel this one is captured in others, so I think it's abundant. It's also stated, I think, fairly well in the vision and mission. So I think it adds a lot to the whole overall picture.
Okay.
I would agree with Chris on that. I think this is the one we can move past. It's important, obviously, but if I were to pick my top 5 or 7, I don't know if that would be.
Okay, that's fair.
Is this already implicit in the mission?
In some way, right? And also the vision, honestly. I think the
Yeah.
water resource aspect is a commonality, right, between those two statements, whether in some way, shape, or form. I think there's a level of redundancy there. I think there's also probably a better way to say it if we wanted something that was aligned with that in our values. Okay.
Hey, Yanni, just throwing something out that I don't know if this is aligned with what you're thinking, but if it was water resources leadership through innovation, adaptive management, and collaboration, you would roll 3 into 1. Number 1, 2, and 4.
Got it. Okay. That's a good comment. 1, 2, and 4. Okay.
Just to make another point too, if we had more what's in the mission, then it wouldn't be redundant. just making a point, and we were looking at two possible mission statements, so I answered the question based upon the mission statement I liked.
Yeah.
And so basically, you see how it drives you into a different perspective. So
100%.
just something you need to be careful of as we move forward here. And I like suggestion also, that consolidation like that is a very powerful tool, so it's a good suggestion, Mike. Let's leave it where it is, that the group voted on, so let's see where that takes us.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
I just do here. Okay, number 2. Okay, so there was the word innovation's been thrown around a good bit. Innovation and adaptive management. We talked about maybe bringing this up into something water resource leadership related, right? And having that kind of be the explanation of that one particular value. But yeah, let's just thoughts, feedback on number 2, innovation and adaptive management, and just thinking about this as a standalone value.
I'll say that that's also almost verbatim from the mission, so I'm struggling to see the value of rephrasing the mission and values.
Okay.
I guess, yeah, I have like kind of a step backwards question. I mean, I think any organization that is trying to get somewhere is gonna have a lot of the same values. So I guess we're trying to develop, are we trying to come up with ones that both resonate with our organization, but maybe that make us or state the values that are maybe separates us from everyone else, or is it just more important to have the generic ones that a lot of different organizations and groups might have value in?
Yeah. I think it should probably be a combination of both. You want this to be easy to understand, right? From a layman's perspective, where if you're walking around and toting your values, right, to your community, you want them to understand exactly what they are. So you don't want it to be so industry specific that it starts to kind of build this gap between, right, people that understand the particularities and the specifics of that particular industry and the ones that don't. So I think it's important to just keep that in mind. But I also think it's important that, if there's something that is super specific to us and who we are and how we operate, that the high level value should be simple, and then the explanation can almost give it context, if that makes sense, right? To kind of bring some just some awareness and some explanation to how this value fits into us and what we do on a daily basis. I want to just mention this again, is that these need to be guiding principles. They need to be values that are constantly brought forth and are able to distill themselves into every single thing we do, right? When we think about it that way. Collaboration, I think I keep coming back to it because it's simple, it's approachable, people will understand what the word collaboration is. And if every single initiative or every goal that we have is rooted and needs some level of collaboration, whether it's with, strategic partners, whether it's with the community, whether it's other groups or organizations, or, it doesn't matter, like there's commonality there. And I think it's a good one. It could maybe be presented and maybe it's not a good one for us because everything we do is not collaborative, but That's kind of the mindset we want to have here. Some of these go pretty deep, honestly. They're very specific in what they are, and I don't think anyone else could possess that same value, right? So this is what we do. This is going to help us build culture internally within the organization, but it's also going to help us build buy-in from our communities and the people that we serve. So we want them to understand it, right? And be able to get behind it as well. So I know that was a bit long-winded. I know what you're saying. I don't really think I answered your question here, but I think just to kind of sum it up is it can kind of be a combination of two, and a lot of really great companies have that, right? They have 4 or 5 that are very vague and very just your quintessential, like what you would think of any company that's successful to have as a value. Fiscal responsibility, or partnership, or for us, like we have a couple specifics that aren't really interchangeable. It's entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial, like that's specific to who we are and what we do. We wouldn't ask anyone else to be that, but every single thing we do, how we talk to people, the decisions we make, how we advise companies, how we talk to each other internally, it's always rooted with that one particular value, and that commonalities exists, and it is possible. Does everybody like all of these?
Well, when I'm looking through them, they start, you shake them a little bit, they start to fall into categories or buckets.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it kind of, I just kind of take it for what it's worth, just throwing ideas here quickly. They kind of fell into 5 different areas. One has to do with the leadership values. One has to do with methodology, which gets into the scientific kinds of things and data. There's the accountability, which has to do with transparency and fiscal responsibility. There's educational. We've got a couple of things that talk about educational outreach and teaching and in collaboration with the community. Then there's the social things, which involves the equity, and what was there's a line up there.
Inclusivity.
Yes, that and the service-oriented mindset. I think that's kind of a social goal or a value as well. I mean, that's just got, I'm looking at those, and some of them just kind of seem to meld together and having many common ideas within themselves.
Okay.
Maybe you got that down below there and I just missed it.
Yeah, no, I mean, you think about some of these themes, and there's definitely some commonality there, but at the end of the day, like if they all fit into higher level values that fall into these buckets, well then, I mean, methodology, I think we might have to go a little bit more deeper into that and what that means. Like, why is methodology a value of ours? Accountability can very well be a value, right? Is holding each other accountable, holding our community accountable, having our community hold us accountable, making sure that there's data to support that accountability on the front end and the back end, that every decision we make is rooted in good database decisions. Like I see that being as something that we can kind of play with and expand on. The educational side is kind of a no-brainer, right? Everything that we've toted for the first time that I've met everybody is that there's this huge initiative, right, in our 10-year plan of just education and getting the buy-in from our communities. Like we can't do this alone. We need them. We need to educate them. And everything we do in regards to budgets and grant money and things moving forward, there should be some very intentional aspect of educational outreach that's a part of that, right? I think everybody agrees with that, including the staff. So I like that one. The social side of it, again, it's social in what capacity? Bringing some context to that would obviously be helpful. Maybe there's another word that goes a little bit deeper that still aligns that and encompasses those. And then leadership values, right? I think leadership values in general, something that pertains to leadership or bringing leadership as as kind of like the tagline, and then bringing some context to it with a sentence or two in regards to what that means for us, I think would go a long way. But there's 5, we think about kind of these themes. I don't like fiscal responsibility. I think sustainability encompasses that, and we can support that with some verbiage. So there's one. scientific and metric driven methods. Whether it's database decision making or, you know, if it's constant innovation or something like that, to make sure that we're always kind of on the precipice of what is relevant and how we're moving forward and ensuring that it is best in class. Community focus and collaboration, like community oriented would be a value. Community collaboration could be a value. Transparency, accountability, and service orientation. That transparency, accountability, I think that accountability in general kind of sums up most of those. There's a little bit of redundancy there in our context. Responsible governance and leadership. Again, this goes back to just leadership and how we're leading, right? And our duty to lead in these or through these particular outlets. So kind of like what you're doing there. Curious to hear what everyone else's thoughts on. Like when everybody else thinks of values, do they think of words like this or do they think of phrases like this down here?
Well, phrases for sure.
Just kind of remove the copy to support it. Like when you think of values, do these more so fall in line, right? Because these are very interchangeable, right? They're very vague, very macro, but we can bring context to all of them. So is it something that's a bit more macro and high level, or is it something that's a bit more specific? You know,
I just saw those 5 areas as how some of these just kind of lead together. And so those 5 words are just, for me, they were ways of categorizing what's in this thing. And I think down below in your 5 down there, you kind of captured a lot of that already.
However, I like what you have come up, I think it's more specific to our organization, what you identified there. It aligns more with our organization. Wouldn't the rest of you agree? Would you scroll down a little, show us what Doug has there?
Yeah.
Those are the 5 buckets, really, for our values.
That would be value for any organization.
Yeah.
So it's very generic. I think getting
Well-
back to confidence, we need to make sure we at least have things that have been really successful in the past. If we want to repeat in the future with employees, everybody else buying in, we need to make sure those two in there, fit in there somewhere.
Absolutely.
Rather than being, just to list everybody else might have.
That kind of leads to the question that I asked about whether we're trying to, you know, be generic, or I always like trying to separate ourselves from the pack. I think you could do that through your value statements. So less common, the better for me, as long as they're accurate.
the less common, the better for you, you said.
Yeah, that kind of really can emphasize why we're great and why maybe theirs aren't so great.
Yeah, I think that gets to the core confidence we're talking about. On the other hand, too, prior to that, we don't have very good competencies at all. Education outreach, for example, the whole area is new to us. We're not very good at the past. We certainly don't have a track record. We haven't done. That should be a core value we need to develop for who we hire, how we move forward. Otherwise, we're not going to accomplish our goals.
I think to me, you're kind of talking about values that exist currently and values that you don't want. And I think that,
the 10-year plan.
I think that kind of gets into like a level down from this to where you're talking about initiatives, I guess. And the values should exist kind of on their own in a certain way, whether or not a value shouldn't a value shouldn't have, like more significance because it's something that we do really well, or less significant the other way around because it's something that we aspire to. Value should just exist regardless of what state the organization or where we are in our journey, I guess.
We kinda got 15% into it.
I mean, let's think about, we have a lot of words on this paper. I think they all, they all mean something in some way. It's just how we kind of jumble them together, and find the ones that, again, fully encompass who we are and what we believe and what our guiding principles are. But let's all kind of think back to, the last 5 years or the last 10 years and some of those big wins that have occurred, and some terms or some phrases that were really those commonalities that allowed us to achieve said things, right? That were important to us, that really drove us. Let's kind of look back a little bit. The education aspect, yeah, we might not have the great track record on it, but it's still something that we all feel like we value, right? And if we want to be industry leaders, where people are looking up and always be innovative and cutting edge and doing things that are best in class, education is kind of a non-negotiable, right? It needs to be a part of it in some place moving forward, maybe not from the past. But yeah, what are some things that some guiding principles or some values that we've had that have helped us get some of those large wins that everybody kind of has in their head right now?
You put the original back up so you look at them. Yeah.
Myself, manager B and manager Tate, newer, so I think you're gonna get different perspectives compared to what Steve is gonna come with.
Okay. And is that just because of tenure, just time, a part of the
I think
organization?
so.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I think, we're now for low cost risk removal. I mean, I was at a meeting today with the Washington commissioners, and somebody had a couple charts on what they accomplished over the past year. But our problem was way above everybody else. We had cost for phosphorus $447,000 a pound. Think about that, ridiculous. Spent $5.8 million and up with $147,000 a pound of phosphorus. Now, that showing fiscal responsibility is true analysis? I don't think so. Another project for the whole year, we removed 1 pound of phosphorus for the whole year. So I was gonna do this at our next board meeting just to show there is a big difference in what we're and how we do it. And
Fiscal responsibility.
well, the rate of 8% of results coming from 20% of the activity. Not every project is not a good project. And there's in organizations, every project is a good project. So by not following that, we have been able to make very rapid progress, along with other things. Bridging our loans, getting grants, to expedite things, to get it into the public faster. So, I think that's probably the most significant difference. I mean, if the rest of us follow what we're doing, we'd be a lot further wrong with that 60 million that we get every year from the state, where it is. We couldn't convince all one plan people to change. I mean, Anna and I worked diligently. In fact, we made enemies by trying to push it through. Just didn't want to change. So tell you, in a leadership position, nothing's gonna change, or we could, the upper echelon, and then change how the business is normal. So I think that's probably one of the most distinctive things, Johnny, that separates us from the pack. In terms of, you know, from a fiscal responsibility aspect and from a, just a overall production aspect in terms of mission.
And I think of impact, I think of perseverance. The biggest thing for me, you know, it sounds like the fiscal responsibility or the monetary aspect, that responsibility that you have is something that I think everybody aligns with. And that's kind of what you're saying there, right? Is just it's having that ROI, right? It's the impact that one would expect based on what's being deployed in regards to resources.
But it's just leaving the fiscal response, the explanation in terms of seeing how we did things differently. You know, I mean, nobody thinks we're fiscally responsible, probably, in a way. There's gotta be a difference in what the results are. So, and then the other big thing is we use metrics, extensive metrics. The other watershed that has a results book that we have every year. We track the goals we have tracked every year. And it's published. You know, nobody else does that.
Yeah.
And so,
Okay.
and it's going on, we're very transparent, everything we have is available to everybody else. You go to I attended this, some of the SWCD meetings, there's just not much data there to be seen. Even in the meetings, so.
Okay. Okay, so data, something related to data, right? Database decisions, data oriented, transparency, like all that stuff kind of falls into that. That's what I'm hearing from you, Steve, is number one. Number two is, you know, I don't know, just fiscal responsibility, just, you know, results oriented, you know, perseverance to be able to produce the results or the impact that one would expect. You know, that's probably something that falls into that realm as well. Okay. So those were all important kind of based on the past here. Anything else that kind of comes to mind?
Yanni, can I have my top five?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so number 3, fiscal responsibility would be my list. Number 6. Ten. And number 4. And all the rest would be somehow,
Is 11 of yours?
Give me 4. Is 11
Uh,
one of yours as well?
yeah, I have 11 as well.
Okay,
Pick the
great.
one you want. Because you wanted it. Yeah, you mentioned, you started with that, was the one you wanted.
No, that was the example I didn't want.
Oh, okay, that wasn't clear.
No, sorry, I mean,
You get that, Yanni? You can get that. I thought
Got it.
that
You
was
guys
a
are
priority.
planted that seed and see if anybody took the bait.
I was following what you're saying. He's saying it's not, but I think it's
Not a priority.
not, well, so I don't wanna get too into this topic, but I think concept it's important, but I think, even like widespread as other organizations have tried to develop policies around that, I think they found that they're not super effective in like outcomes. So,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of organizations that are public organizations that are shutting down those departments because of what maybe how little impact that they've had in the organization.
Yeah. it's the impact, right? The change, like the results. It's, you know, I get that. Okay.
So when I look at equity, I think in terms of, there are those who live on a lake and those who don't. They are all paying taxes into this organization. What are they getting for their investment? So when I look at equity, but then that we could also tie that into fiscal responsibility too, right? So it could fit in there as well.
Yeah, I think the verbiage or the language that's being used, it goes to the DEI stuff, and I think something that we want to stay away from, but the value, you know, your intent of making sure, and I think it goes back to the vision of getting people off the lake, thinking about impacts to the lake.
Everybody is a partner in this endeavor.
Yeah, and actually,
That's the equity piece.
the lake usage, 80% people that don't live on the lake. We've got data that shows that. You look at all the water authorities that they own and your licenses and licenses, 80% of the outside in this zip code 5505, the DNR licenses for sailboats and everything else, and boats and jet skis. 20% are like 80%, and if that's not even counting all the people that go to the swim each day, or the people who use one Tuesday nights for 10 weeks out of the summer. Hundreds of people come to the park simply because they're on the lake and they're using the lake. You know, the land there and all that stuff. That's all utilization of the lake. So it's when I think of equity, I think about lower economic people that have to be make sure they're included. That doesn't really pertain to this whole. We don't think about that at all. Certainly Washington County does. That's what I. You know, they got a lot of minorities, a lot of social issues. You gotta make sure all equity in terms of how they spend their money and everything else. Flood control is to be determined where it's going to be right for the controlling the water, no matter who's there or not there. So that's the point I'm trying to make. We're not a organization or an engineer firm trying to protect natural resources.
Okay. Emily, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, if the board would allow me to maybe speak on the topic of equity and inclusion a little bit more, I could share some data from the EPA's environmental justice screening tool. We were able to upload our boundaries to that and get some data on that. And so 92% of the district's population is white, but you know, as we've kind of been discussing here, equity isn't just about race. 10% of our people, or about 1,800 people, have disabilities. 2,700 people, or about 15%, are over the age of 65. And 6% of households, or about 400 households, speak a language other than English. And so, you know, the EPA has also said that some citizens are at a greater risk of negative impacts from climate change. And so we're looking at this with our floodplain vulnerability assessment. But I think this kind of might come into focus for us a little bit more, not just through that, but kind of through this greater strategic planning lens, just to kind of better serve our community into the future as we sort of deal with climate change, as well as internal practices, you know, practicing equitable and unbiased hiring practices, equitable pay. We're of course required to adhere to the Minnesota Pay Equity Act, things like that. It's really, it touches a lot of the things that we do. And so this might be a way to communicate our commitment to that.
I feel they're very good points, but for example, lots of poor still have lead pipes in their housing. You know, there's equity, you know, somebody should have taken a hold of that thing and gotten all that stuff out of it years ago. Lead paint, same way. It's just now getting around to doing those things. So, but you know, that's a social issue that we're not gonna be involved with directly. We might have an opportunity to do it sometime in the future. But I think it's something that has to be handled by people that are responsible for those areas. So. But I think your point all taken. With certainly some things that we have to look at, especially in flooding and that probably.
I mean, the water's gonna go where it's gonna go.
It's gonna go where it's going. Most people live in the low areas. I mean, you look at St. Paul, all the immigrants lived in the low areas where they always got cut out every year. You look at the history of St. Paul, Irish were down there, and then the Mexicans, and they got it turned to be in the sewer area, so, nobody corrected it. Now they're correcting, but finally, but though there is definitely inequity, but, I don't see us as being, at least what I've seen so far in this area, and then Emily's got some data we have to pay attention to, and that's what we have on the staff for, is to bring this to our attention. And if there is an issue, we certainly make sure we address, but I'm not sure we number 3 on the list compared to other things, but anyway, because it's not that good right now.
It is, equity is always an issue. And this is a document that we are using for communicating to the public. We have to be sensitive to that as an organization. We can't say it's not. We have to be careful here.
No, I agree. Probably should get it, everybody else has it in, right?
I mean, if, no, it shouldn't just be like a
how much-
formality, right? If it's something that, again, if it's a guiding belief, it should be there. But if we think about, you know, what's to come and where we're going and some of the challenges that we're going to face, and if there's data to support that that's something that, you know, not something that can be overlooked, that needs to be, that inclusivity needs to be there. Then, you know, maybe it's not something that has been top of mind, right, in the past, but is something that is a necessity kind of moving forward in order to convey not only internally through the staff, right, but also externally through our community or to our community. Okay. I like the kind of going around and giving kind of your 5 favorites here. I have some simplified kind of phrases and words that I'm starting to kind of build on the backside throughout this conversation. But you know, everybody that's willing, if we want to just kind of raise your hand and just pick out the 5 that are most, I don't know, that resonate most with you. And I'll just, if there's commonalities, I'll check them off. If it's something new, again, we'll kind of highlight it and have a discussion around them. But this is all where it starts. So it's good chat. Who wants to go next? Top 5.
I'll go next if nobody else wants to go. I'll do the same 3 that, Dave, fiscal responsibility, collaboration, scientific and metric-driven approach. I think that service-oriented mindset is extremely important, where we answer to our constituents. And I think we want everybody to be service-minded, and outwardly look for our constituents. And so I would have that one in there to replace responsible governance, which that's in there because I read the government manual and I stuck it in there. So, okay. But everybody has that. So, but not everybody's service oriented, right? So we know that for a fact, right? So that's something we want to be for, I think. And then, I don't know, I think, visionary spirit would be the 5th. Can you put a bullet plan to say how many points we get with each one, Yanni, or not?
Yep, I got my little tallies.
Okay, I just couldn't see it on the screen.
No, you're okay.
Equity is covered in the governance manual, very strong, and in the employee manual, so.
Anybody else?
I'll go 12.
Well,
Yeah, like 12, I like 9 and 10. I think they could be combined. In some
Okay.
way. Um, I think collaboration is important. I mean, the responsibility is what I feel like that could be combined too. Maybe with transparency and accountability without saying all the words. So 3 and 8. That's 5 or not. I feel like 7 could be left out because it's so heavy in the vision and mission.
Okay.
Yeah, we need the voice of Manager Anderson and Doug if he comes back. I know Doug had to step out. So. Rejoining? Oh, he's not? Okay.
Mike is here. See if Mike has the ability to chime in.
I don't think on the list, oh, Mike's still there, yeah. He doesn't
Mike,
have a screen.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about, if he's still driving or not. Mike, are you still driving? Or can you hear us?
I've just got home. I'm trying to set up my computer right now. Yes.
Great.
But I think I accidentally dropped off for a minute. Did you have a question?
No, kind of going through this hot list of 12 kind of visions.
Mm-hmm.
And we're kind of going around the room, having everybody just kind of tally up or choose the 5 that resonate most with them. We'd love to go through impact whenever you can kind of get some screen visibility and kind of take a look at what we're looking at. That's really it.
Yep, I can see it here. And I've heard the input. And I guess the one thing that kind of keeps coming back to some earlier conversation about public engagement and our role and such is thinking about the old saying of many hands makes a big job small. And so while we have been, a leader and scientific metric driven and things like that, and we look for collaboration, the reality is that the way that our community members themselves are interacting with the natural environment, we're on a losing trend. And so somehow, trying to have something that's more engaging from that standpoint. Both the community engagement and education, I guess, is still, but it's not quite there for me. It's maybe more like, holistic. And maybe it's something separate, but the community engagement education, I think, is still, I'd like to see as one. Collaboration would be in there. As Steve noted earlier today, I was quite taken back again by the sort of the almost lack of fiscal responsibility that we see in some of our partner projects, but I think it's still core to who we have been, who will be in the future in all areas. And maybe one last piece is still that visionary spirit.
Okay.
Because and getting back to the very first one, the holistic component of it, it does take in this service to the wider population. I really appreciate Emily's input on the fact that we just have, having access means them designing and building things where people with disabilities or just not as able can still access. So thinking about our projects, if we want people to be engaging with the natural environment, one of the things maybe that's been absent in the past is thinking about building and designing things and honestly, just thinking about the piece we did out at Moody Lake, we did not do it from the perspective of somebody with a disability or with somebody with limited mobility.
It's great, super helpful.
To piggyback, what Mike was talking about, access. We have access on Horn Lake, bring your boat in. We don't have an access or a swimming beach for people who don't boat. We just want to equity.
So it sounds like fiscal responsibility, collaboration, I mean, almost unanimous there, right, of including those two. Some other ones that were a little higher on the voting side. Visionary spirit was another one. And then this was actually 2 votes. Yeah, so this was 2 votes. This was 2 votes. This was 2 votes. And this was 2 votes. Okay, so the darker green highlighted were, I mean, everybody that chimed in chose them, right? The fiscal responsibility, collaboration. Some saying that maybe we can combine collaboration with something else, and visionary spirit. Those were the 3 that really, I think, resonated with all of you. Kind of the next bucket, right, of higher votes were scientific and metric driven approach, service oriented mindset, responsible governance, and then equity and inclusivity. transparency and accountability, community engagement and education. They all, somebody kind of chimed in on those. Honestly, I'm a little surprised just based on I don't know, just based on an outsider's perspective, right? Kind of this unbiased perspective of the conversations that we've had. Community engagement and education has really kind of been a pretty consistent theme. Also, kind of that transparency in regards to the data that we're always presenting. I think that is kind of encompassed in the fiscal responsibility side of things. But when I think of fiscal responsibility, I think of essentially formulating budgets and deploying those resources responsibly. The big kind of differentiator between you and other organizations is really just kind of the transparency in regards to the updates that you provide, the clarity in regards to the aftermath, the impact, the results, right, and the data associated with it. I think there's some staff members that take a ton of time and energy to be able to build those documents and make them public, right? So everybody does have that exposure. And so those were kind of surprising for me. The sustainability and resilience side of things, I think sustainability is probably encompassed in aspects of the vision, certainly aspects of the vision, our mission, and things like that. But yeah, those are just kind of my thoughts. So it sounds like something fiscally responsible, like some fiscal responsibility kind of value is of importance and should be a part of those five, right? That's one of five, let's say. Two is the collaboration element. I think we can kind of change some of the verbiage to support that, to bring a little bit of different context to it. Not just collaborating, but maybe collaboration also encompasses the educational element or the community engagement element to it, and collaborating with them, and we can kind of group those together in some way, shape, or form. And then the last is the visionary spirit. And I think that's very much in line with some of the projects and wins that you've had in the past. I think everybody's perception of what this organization is and what we want it to be, best in class, forward thinking, industry leaders, thought leaders, right? Innovative ideas always, perseverance and constantly kind of pushing those bigger, lofty kind of boundaries or challenges.
Yanni, I would recommend just the number 8 be combined with number 3.
Okay.
That's what I would think too.
Okay, so figuring out a way to kind of bring those together like that.
What do you think, Dave? Should we go along with that?
I think, when you say the word responsibility, people don't probably correctly allocate your resources. That's why it's so important to have that definition explaining, thinking of changing responsibility to resource allocation responsibility. We explained it very well in the write-up up there, so I think it's fine. Alluding it though with something else. Transparency is just having it available to anybody wants to look at it. And first of all, we have the data, right? Which people don't. And then we have it available for them to look anytime they want. I don't know, I think it waters down a little bit, but I think we should just leave that fiscal responsibility. It's kind of a message every time we have a chance to talk to somebody, we kind of push that point. In fact, hey, when we're done chatting with him, he was throwing this NREP, the NREP again, after a meeting. So he was saying that, how good you are targeting. I mean, that's our word, targeting, he's now talking that way. So, by target, he means the 820 rule, looking for the project. He gets it now. He sees that. When he looks at all us things. I mean,
But I think if you ask people from Washington County whether they're fiscally responsible, they're say they
Yeah.
are.
right.
So that kind of leads to the point that saying it is one thing, but What do you mean by that?
Well, that's why the explanation is so important.
But I think it's more than just balancing a budget, which is what, when I think of being fiscally responsible, you're not wasting money. You're aware of the budget, but there's another level that we operate at.
That's why allocation stuff is so important.
But that's what I think combining fiscal responsibility with transparency, it has something with being accountable too. Like being fiscally responsible, accountable to stakeholders. Not just managing a budget, but actually doing the things that are gonna be, you know, you get, you know, I guess there's got some context around projects Washington did where there's $47,000 per pound of phosphorus. There had to be some sort of decision making that went into that, and there may be some sort of, it looks bad on for when we talk about it, but I'm sure they,
So you ask, what else did you consider?
yeah, I don't know.
That's the question should be.
Yeah, how did you?
When somebody else to me with a decision, well, what are your two other alternatives you consider?
Like maybe they,
And then most, I mean, they sounded, they found this project, went ahead and did it. They didn't look at it. We must have 300 projects we could right around the lake. And each could be anywhere from a half. But, you know, we'd all be dead and gone. We'd have enough of those that have an impact on the lake. You're trying to get the line thing in place, you know, so, which all that same way. It's, I don't know.
So I
mean,
kind of
this
combined them.
fiscal responsibility with that explanation helps a little bit. Then they're gonna, what is the Pareto principle? Well, hopefully they'll look it up and find.
Yeah. I almost feel like the Pareto principle is going to be over most people's heads. You know, I didn't really change the titles here, right? Like if one of the visions was, you know, fiscally responsible and transparent, right? Kind of all encompassing. And then as an explanation, ensure efficient allocation of taxpayer funds through cost benefit analysis and always acting with integrity and openness, ensuring that the organization remains clear in its actions and accountable to its constituents or accountable to its
That doesn't distort, that avoids some of the distortion I thought that might happen, so that's the approach. Yeah, so. That's
I
where
feel like
it's good to have a good wordsmith on the agenda, the payroll.
like that could even be turned up, cause
Yeah.
it starts and so with similar concepts, but. And in an ideal world, I wished accountability could be up there somewhere as, in the bold.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. And we have to figure out a way to kind of convey all of this. But if we think of like, I think there has to be a way to kind of convey this, right? Fiscally responsible, accountable, and transparent, right? Whether it's having all of these as values or using this terminology to kind of explain the fiscal responsibility aspect of it. There has to be, they're all kind of, you know, in the same bucket, if you will, right? I don't think we need to kind of not dial that down today. We can certainly send it out, but it sounds like that is something, and you know, something that is relevant to just monetary policy, how we approach projects, how we build budgets, how we, you know, present information and data, how we are consistently accountable and transparent to our communities and providing them the results and the data. Like that all can kind of be encompassed somehow. I don't quite know yet, but I think it would be a good value. Okay. Does everybody agree that the collaboration, and I know everybody said this, but collaboration, same thing, that that's a pretty good standalone? There's really not much to really kind of, you know, expand on in regards to collaboration as being a value of the organization. Okay. Sustainability and resilience, can we all agree to just kind of knock this off the list here? Nobody really voted for it. I know we have a couple other individuals that aren't with us tonight to kind of impart their kind of perspective here, but I don't know.
It
no
is
one-
reflected in our mission and so that's
yeah,
why.
so there's redundancy there. Okay, that makes sense. Scientific and metric driven approach.
Could that be somehow combined with 8?
With 8, responsible governance. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
I put the governance in there. I went through the governance manual, the employee manual, and the 10-year plan, and pulled a bunch of principles that were in there. And governance manual to do with crossing your T's and dotting your I's in terms of running the operation. That's a lot different, I think, having a met set up and a system tracking performance against over 10, 15 years. I guess I see those in apples and oranges. And I think, like I said, you have to have a governance manual if you're an LG. Has them, City County has a state requirement, so it's kind of a given. And I did there to get some, I only got 2 ideas out of the governance manual because it was so crossing the T's and dotting the I's that it wasn't worth putting in.
Yeah.
Good. You saw what I sent out to you, didn't you, Yanni?
Yep. I mean,
I think two weeks that came out of the governance manual.
Okay.
We got out of our employee manual and the 10-year plan. And then our personal experience that might relate to it.
yeah. I mean, part of me likes the explanation of number 8 better than number 8. Like, I feel like there might be a more layman's approachable way to convey that. It really, it's
It
just
has to do with expense vouchers, it has expense, what you do with your PTOs and a pay, it's all that kind of, basic building blocks for the organization in terms of how we run it,
yeah,
what our responsibilities are, not much philosophical or, value type information in there. And maybe
Yeah.
Mike's online now, maybe he can comment on that, that's one of those boring things you could read. So.
but what is like the, like responsible government? I think it's kind of the same thing. I don't know, like I'm seeing, I don't know, we're results oriented always. The outcome is more important than, the work itself. We're always
I hate
focused
to
on
keep rolling.
outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, the statement about outcomes versus activity, I think is important. And I feel like it somehow goes back to 3, which is now.
Okay, accountable, transparent. Okay, I can see that.
Well, yeah, that in the employee manual, basically saying it's important to look at, meaningful results versus being busy.
Yeah,
Employee can be busy as hell, right? To develop any meaningful results, they're not working on the right thing at the right time, what you're getting at, and that's what that statement has, that kind of concept.
sure.
I mean, we have a list of 50 things to do. If you're only working on 15, you're missing the opportunity to work on the top 3 or 4.
Yeah,
So,
But to me, you're talking about more personnel related issues, and I'm thinking of it more from a project standpoint. Like, to me, Washington County was very active in their $5.8 million project, but I'm not sure they were focused on it.
No, definitely. That's why the Pareto, so that's covered up in the responsibility allocation of resources.
So what I'm saying is if you're trying to communicate the way that the organization is run from a personnel standpoint, individuals being more efficient, their roles and how they spend their time, that's lost on me with what's up now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like that's not gonna what you're trying to convey is not gonna translate to your community when people read that. You know, it's almost like it's easy to dismiss. You're in it, right? This is everyone's silo here. Like we understand this, we feel it, we know what's in the handbooks, we know how we do this. But when you think about this from an outsider's perspective, I don't know, like it's either one, it's a given. We would hope that you are responsibly governing, right, what you have responsibility to, right? Because you have ownership over some of our tax dollars, number one. So it's almost like a formality, like it needs to be there no matter what. And number two, it's, you know, for me, like there is value in having an organization who is results oriented or focused on the outcome or the impact and is always seeing 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of the activity. And if that's how we're operating, where it's okay if the communities don't really understand the purpose or where we're going, hopefully we can convey that. But even if they're not and they're showing up and doing the day-to-day activity, we are the ones who hold tension to the outcome, the impact, making sure that we always get there.
I have a suggestion, replace Pareto principle without impactful outcomes. Because that's what it is. So to replace the Pareto principle with what it stands for, that's what it stands for. Impactful outcomes over mere activity. Results versus being busy. But I think impactful outcomes we're trying to accomplish. 20% of the things we do is 80% of results. That's impactful. 1% at each project is not impactful. We won't live long enough to get there. It'll be a 100-year plan, 200-year. Not a 10-year, but 6-year like we have to get us off the list.
Mike, you had your hand raised. Chime in here by all means. Is he still here? Oh, there he is. Yeah. I think you're muted.
Okay, I'm not sure, I know Mike had it unmuted and then somehow it went back defaulted. Well, I was just thinking that isn't fiscal responsibility item 3, isn't that really responsible governance or government? And so they seem to be closer and closer to the same thing. You know, as we discuss this.
I
And
think we can move it every.
I guess I'm still looking to try to understand, you know, how we're doing this community education. You know, President Smaltz, you were telling me this morning about how much you've learned in the last year about shorelines. And we were at a meeting where the 5 commissioners were largely glowing about all the work that the watershed districts are doing. And you and I were taking the same notes. $18,000 a pound, $19,000, $147,000 a pound. And I mean, it was just staggering. So from that standpoint, and again, going back to that many hands make a big job small, how are we getting the public to be engaged to independently do the work through education and understanding about their relationship with the natural environment. And regardless of whether it's the lakeshore or their lot a half a mile or a mile away from the nearest water body, because the water's gonna flow in that direction anyway. So we're just going back to me somewhat about that holistic, and unless we just feel that, you know, we have seen through the processes that we implemented the last 10 years that we can somewhat short circuit. So maybe through our current programming of shoreline and other activities, enhancing our outreach program through the work of staff, that alone will, through these other values, will help get us that. And then maybe we don't need to make it so inclusive within the value statements itself. That would be another path to the same outcome.
Are 1 and 2 out?
Say it again.
Are 1 and 2 out? Like
I don't think
first
they're
one that
out.
was-
Nobody really put any. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we can
so they're
certainly
out.
drop. Yep, we can drop them. And honestly, I mean, I think we can convey this, right, from both perspectives, the responsible governance perspective or the outcomes over activity perspective, depending on how you kind of internalize that. Part of me feels like we can convey that through some of these other ones, whether it's a different kind of subset of words on the title side or on the in the explanation, or it's kind of expected through fiscal responsibility. Like there's redundancy there. I would like to kind of throw that out there. If everybody, I know we might not have full agreement on that, but again, we're whittling this down, and we're getting pretty close here to to 5 to 7. And I'm not saying we're going to be inclusive of all of them, but we're starting to really dial in on some things that I think are common themes, right? In regards to the value side of things.
Yeah, I
doing.
mean,
Go ahead.
can I go ahead? So what I was hearing Mike say is that number 6, responsible governance, would also be rolled into number 1, along with fiscal responsibility, accountability, and transparency.
Yeah.
Is that right, Mike?
Yes.
So that'd get us
I
down
think-
to 7.
Yeah, and I think there's some kind of word wizardry that needs to happen with all this up here. It's too much, and it needs to be way more
Yeah.
concise and inclusive. But still, we know what that bucket, like the essence of what that needs to be. Okay, so now we have 7. Collaboration.
You took off that, but Yanni, you took it off, but you didn't add it up in 1, right? Was it another bullet point under 1, or are we gonna lose that concept?
So I'll put this up here, but I have outcome over activity, right? Just kind of
Okay.
on the bottom here,
That's
so we
fine.
don't lose it, but I will put that up there, right? Just to make sure that we do convey that. Visionary spirit, I don't know if we all feel good about that terminology, right? That visionary spirit, but I think we can all agree there needs to be something that is encouraging forward thinking, innovative ideas, right? Being thought leaders, always challenging boundaries, like being at the forefront of what we're doing at any given point, right? We
could include that with scientific and metric-driven approach.
Sure. I had that thought actually is, we think about the scientific or a metric driven approach, or metric driven innovation or something along those lines. Okay. So now we're starting to bring some together here. We didn't have a lot of votes on the community engagement and education side of it. But it sounds like, does everybody agree that there should be something? It might not be too representative of the past, but future 10-year plan, where we're going, the things we're talking about. We we need to be kind of the tide that rises all ships here and be able to just educate, inform, and maybe an insensitive kind of word, but leverage the community to be able to excel and hit our goals. Right? We can't do this alone.
Could we combine 4 and 5?
I had the same thought.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
I think education and community engagement would fit better with collaboration. So you might have collaboration / education.
Yeah.
That would work.
Because, you know, if you're gonna collaborate, you're gonna be educated by collaboration, whether you wanna do it. I mean, we don't talk to them now at all, so we can't educate them, right? So that's the problem.
I like that.
And so I think it fits up there more logically, I think.
Okay. So now we have 5. That's pretty impressive. Does anybody feel like there's anything that's really missing from these?
It might be good if you could, if you someone just put up the original list. You know, because if we don't see the original list, something's gonna be missing.
Sure.
Right? So we need a reference point of where we were before we got so wise and wisdom with this 5 articles that we picked up.
Okay.
And we can sleep on it and go back at it a few days later, we might see it in a light. I'm like Dave, I'd like to have stuff in front of you to go back and look at. Makes the thought process a lot easier. Johnny, we're about 7:30.
Yep, we're there. Okay, so I'm gonna send the original list and some of these other ones, the 5 that we've kind of consolidated here to everybody. Just to get some feedback. Honestly, the goal here is really just gonna be just playing with words, right? And trying to find clean, concise ways to convey a lot of the points that are in those 5 that we've kind of aligned on. I will do the same, right? And start to kind of bring this all together and figure out a way to convey, these kind of 3 into that 1 and making sure that it's all inclusive. My ask will be that everybody here does the same. And I don't know, hopefully we hit it out of the park and somebody, somebody brings something to the table that we can all kind of get behind in regards to some of these. I think there's ones that'll be significantly easier than others. But yeah, I mean, fiscal responsibility, accountability, that's kind of the first bucket. The second bucket is collaboration and community engagement, or collaboration and education. Innovations, metric-driven approaches, right? And then honestly, the service-oriented mindset, I think that can stand alone. And then the equity and inclusivity, I think we all agree is something that is going to be a necessity kind of moving forward here with climate change, et cetera.
Yeah, I might suggest also that Emma's kind of been an onlooker. Maybe she could take a look at how these values fit that position and vision statement. Was there any indication we were taking that in the beginning, and we got off track, it might be good to have, because she put that first chart together, all three together. She could
Sure.
put Together, and then maybe make a critique of how she sees those interacting with the vision and mission statements.
Okay, yeah, we can certainly do that. So, okay, but that sounds great. That'll actually be a nice way to kind of present this back to everybody. Okay, let's do that
Can
then.
you do that, Emily?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we're all set. I appreciate everybody's participation today. I hope everybody feels the progress that we're making. We're moving pretty quickly here, which is great. And I thank you for everybody's time.
Yeah, I think this has been great for the board. We, like you said before, we don't have a lot of chance to chat about things. This really gives us an opportunity to know each other a lot better.
Yeah.
And I think we're building a much stronger organization to process too. So
Yeah,
we thank you for that.
it's my pleasure. I have a lot of fun at these, to be totally honest. This is, you know, the vision and mission and value stuff is not something that pops up in my day-to-day often. So it's nice to kind of take this step back and really kind of see this into such a public facing organization. So I'm having a ton of fun. Hopefully everybody feels the value. I would expect all of your relationships are probably, you know, fortifying themselves as well by going through this as a group too, which is great.
Okay, adjourn the meeting then. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Would you like to have a motion to adjourn, President Schmaltz?
I guess we should probably do one. I entertain a move. I think we're off.
No, we're still on.
Okay,
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it. And, does anybody oppose adjourning? There's no opposition for adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.